Max Verstappen has been linked to an explosive accusation against Red Bull's engineers. They do not listen to me. But there is one major problem. The available source does not contain a verified interview, an official transcript, or direct proof that Verstappen actually said those words. What it does contain is something far more dangerous for Red Bull. Reports of a possible $100 million contract demand, claims that Mercedes rejected the conditions surrounding a move, and growing pressure over whether Verstappen still believes Red Bull can deliver his future. Because when a driver stops trusting the car, that is a performance problem. When he stops trusting the engineers, that becomes a team crisis. And if this frustration is real, the next disagreement may not end with another radio message. It may end with Verstappen walking away. Subscribe to the channel. To understand why this accusation matters, you have to separate the words from the warning behind them. The words, "they do not listen to me," are not verified in the available source. There is no confirmed interview, no official transcript, no direct statement proving Max Verstappen used that exact sentence about Red Bull's engineers. But the reason the claim feels believable is more important than the quote itself. Because Formula One drivers do not need to publicly attack their engineers for frustration to become visible. Sometimes it appears in a short radio message. Sometimes in a colder answer after qualifying. Sometimes in the way a driver describes the car without blaming anyone directly. And sometimes, the real tension comes from what is not said. That is where Red Bull's situation becomes dangerous. Verstappen is not just the person driving the car. He is one of the most important sources of information inside the entire operation. Every lap gives him data that sensors cannot fully explain. He can feel when the rear of the car moves too suddenly. He can sense when the front tires stop responding. He can tell when the car is fast for one corner, but unstable across an entire lap. That feedback becomes part of how engineers understand the problem. Think of it like a doctor looking at a scan while the patient explains where the pain actually is. The scan matters. The numbers matter. But ignoring the person feeling the problem would be a serious mistake. That is why any suggestion that Verstappen feels unheard creates immediate concern. Because if the driver and engineers stop trusting each other, development becomes slower. The driver explains one feeling. The data suggests something different. The engineers follow the numbers. The driver returns to the track and feels the same weakness. Then the frustration grows. Not because either side is necessarily wrong. Because they are describing the same problem from two different worlds. The engineer sees graphs. The driver feels danger at nearly impossible speed. And this is where communication becomes everything. A great Formula One team does not simply collect feedback. It understands what the driver is trying to say. That sounds simple. It is not. A driver may say the car has no front end. To a casual listener, that sounds like part of the car is missing. What the driver usually means is that the car does not turn into the corner the way he expects. He moves the steering wheel. The front tires respond too slowly. The car pushes wider than he wants. Now imagine that happening while another driver is only a fraction of a second behind. That tiny weakness can decide qualifying. It can ruin tire life. It can force the driver to brake earlier. And it can make the entire car feel unpredictable. That sounds technical, but the experience is simple. Imagine running down a hallway in socks, then trying to change direction on a polished floor. You know where you want to go. Your body reacts. But your feet do not grip quickly enough. That delay creates hesitation. And hesitation is poison for an elite racing driver. Verstappen's greatest strength is commitment. He attacks a corner with complete belief in what the car will do. If that belief disappears, even slightly, the lap changes. He waits longer. He protects the car. He leaves a little more space. And at the front of Formula One, a little more space can be the difference between control and defeat. This is why the supposed accusation touches something deeper than anger. It touches confidence. Does Verstappen believe Red Bull understands the car's weaknesses? Does he believe his feedback is being translated into the right changes? Does he believe the team is solving the problem he feels, rather than the problem the numbers make easiest to measure? The source does not answer those questions. It does not confirm an engineering dispute. It does not identify a failed upgrade. And it does not show Verstappen confronting specific members of the technical team. But the wider pressure around his future makes those questions impossible to ignore. Because a driver can tolerate a difficult car when he believes the team understands it. He can accept a bad weekend when he sees a clear solution. He can remain patient when progress is visible. What becomes much harder is repeating the same complaint and feeling that nothing changes. That is when frustration becomes personal. Not because the driver dislikes the engineers. Because he begins to fear that they are no longer hearing the urgency in his voice. And Red Bull cannot afford that fear. Verstappen's relationship with the team has been built through years of shared success. He knows how the engineers work. They know how he communicates. They understand that his radio messages can sound sharp because everything is happening under extreme pressure. But history creates expectations. When a relationship has worked before, both sides expect it to keep working. The moment it does not, the disappointment feels larger. A new driver may accept confusion. A proven champion expects understanding. That expectation can become a source of tension. Because Verstappen is not describing problems from a distance. He is experiencing them at full speed. He is the person who feels the car move when it should remain stable. He is the person who loses confidence when the balance changes without warning. He is the person who must decide whether to attack a corner before he knows exactly how the car will react. The engineers are under pressure too. They must study thousands of pieces of information. Tire temperatures, ride height, wind direction, brake balance, fuel load, track conditions. Every change can improve one part of the car while damaging another. It is like pushing down one side of a water bed. Something rises somewhere else. That means engineers cannot simply make every change the driver requests. Sometimes the requested solution creates a larger problem. Sometimes the data shows that the driver's feeling comes from another area. Sometimes the fastest setup is not the most comfortable one. And sometimes, the team must tell even the best driver in the world that the solution he wants is not possible. That is where trust is tested. A driver does not need the engineers to agree with him every time. He needs to believe they understand him before they disagree. That difference is enormous. Feeling challenged can improve performance. Feeling ignored destroys confidence. And this is why the exact quote matters less than the possibility behind it. If Verstappen believes his feedback is being properly considered, then the headline is only an unsupported accusation. If he believes his concerns are repeatedly being dismissed, then Red Bull has a problem that money cannot solve. Not even a reported $100 million per year. Because a huge contract can reward a driver. It cannot make him trust the car. It cannot make him trust the development direction. And it cannot make him feel heard inside the room where the most important decisions are made. That is the first major pressure point in this story. Not anger. Not public embarrassment. Communication. Because once communication breaks, every technical problem becomes harder to solve. The driver becomes more frustrated. The engineers become more defensive. The language becomes sharper. And a disagreement about the car slowly turns into a disagreement about respect. That is the moment Red Bull must avoid. Because the next stage is not simply Verstappen asking for a different setup. It is Verstappen asking whether the people around him still understand what he needs to win. And this is where the problem moves from communication to consequences. Because when a driver feels that the car is not reacting the way he expects, the damage does not stay inside one corner. It spreads. A small weakness at the front of the car changes how the driver enters the corner. That changes how early he can return to the throttle. That changes how much stress reaches the rear tires. And that can change the entire race. One complaint can affect qualifying speed, tire life, overtaking, strategy, and confidence. That sounds like a technical chain. But the human side is even more important. A driver who trusts the car attacks. A driver who doubts the car calculates. And at the highest level, calculation can cost time. Not because the driver becomes slow. Because the driver starts protecting himself from a reaction he no longer fully understands. That is the hidden danger. Verstappen's entire style depends on certainty. He needs to know that when he turns the wheel, the car will answer immediately. He needs to know that when he commits to the brakes, the rear will remain under control. He needs to know that when he places the car near the limit will not suddenly move. The moment that certainty disappears, the relationship between driver and machine changes. And when that happens, the relationship between driver and engineers comes under pressure too. Because every difficult lap creates a new question. Did the setup move in the wrong direction? Did the team misunderstand the feedback? Did the data hide the problem? Or is the driver asking the car to do something it simply cannot do? Those questions are normal inside Formula One. What matters is how the team answers them. A healthy team treats disagreement as information. An unhealthy team treats disagreement as blame. That difference can decide whether the next upgrade solves the problem or makes it worse. And this is where the alleged frustration becomes more believable to fans, even without proof. Verstappen has built a reputation for saying exactly what he feels inside the car. He does not hide irritation. He does not soften every message. When something feels wrong, the reaction can be immediate. But an emotional radio message and a complete breakdown in trust are not the same thing. That is critical. Drivers speak under pressure. They are traveling at extreme speed. They are processing danger, strategy, tires, traffic, and competition at the same time. A sharp sentence in that moment does not automatically mean the driver has lost faith in the team. But repeated frustration can create a different pattern. One message can be emotion. Several similar complaints can become evidence of a deeper concern. And the available source does not provide enough detail to prove that pattern. Still, the possibility matters because of what Red Bull stands to lose. The team's advantage is not only the car. It is the connection between the car, the engineers, and Verstappen's understanding of both. That connection has been built over years. It has survived pressure. It has produced victories. It has allowed the team to make difficult decisions quickly because everyone already understands the language being used. Break that connection, and Red Bull loses more than trust. It loses speed. Not necessarily on the straight. Not necessarily in the engine. In decision-making. A team that understands its driver can solve problems faster. A team that doubts its driver can waste entire weekends searching in the wrong direction. Imagine being lost in a large city with a map that updates too slowly. You can still move. You can still make choices. But every wrong turn costs time. Formula One works the same way. Development time is limited. Practice time is limited. Race weekends move quickly. And when rivals are close, there is no space for confusion. That is why feeling ignored can become more damaging than being disagreed with. Disagreement can be useful. It forces both sides to explain themselves. It reveals assumptions. It can expose a weakness that neither side saw clearly before. But feeling ignored ends the conversation. The driver stops believing his words matter. The engineers stop receiving complete feedback. And both sides begin working with less information. That is when frustration can turn into distance. And distance is dangerous because it rarely appears in one dramatic moment. It appears in small changes. A shorter meeting. A colder answer. Less patience. More direct criticism. A driver who once described the problem in detail may begin saying only that the car is not good enough. An engineer who once explained every decision may begin relying on the data without discussing the feeling behind it. Both sides still work. Both sides still speak. But the trust inside the conversation becomes weaker. And this is where the wider contract pressure becomes impossible to separate from the engineering pressure. The source mentions reports of a possible $100 million salary demand. It also points to claims that Mercedes rejected conditions connected to a possible move. Those reports do not confirm an engineering dispute, but they create a larger question. If Verstappen is demanding more from Red Bull, what is he really asking for? Money? Control? Technical confidence? A stronger guarantee that his feedback will shape the future car? The source does not answer that. And those possibilities cannot be presented as fact. But the logic behind them is important. A driver at Verstappen's level would not judge a team only by the contract. He would judge whether the people inside the team can convert his experience into performance. That is where influence becomes valuable. Not because the driver wants to control every decision. Because the driver wants proof that his understanding of the car reaches the people capable of changing it. And if he believes that process is weakening, the salary becomes secondary. This is why Red Bull's response would need to be careful. The easiest reaction would be public denial. Say the relationship is strong. Say the team listens. Say the rumors are exaggerated. That may calm the headlines. But it would not solve the real issue, if one exists. The real solution would happen away from cameras. Inside technical meetings. Inside simulator sessions. Inside the conversations where drivers explain what the car is doing, and engineers decide what can realistically be changed. Trust is rebuilt there. Not through statements. Through evidence. The driver reports a weakness. The engineers identify the cause. The next version of the car improves. That cycle proves the system is working. But when the cycle fails repeatedly, doubt grows. And that is where the title of this story becomes dangerous. They do not listen to me. Even though the quote is unverified, it captures the fear at the center of every driver-team relationship. Not being understood. Because drivers put their bodies inside the result of every technical decision. Engineers can study a mistake. The driver has to survive it. That creates an emotional difference between the two sides. An engineer may describe a problem as manageable. A driver may experience the same problem as unpredictable.